welcome back to another episode of Mel. If you haven't been here before, I'm Mel, the host of this channel, and I'm back with another episode. But before that, I just want to thank everyone who watched and tuned in to my collaboration video on Trigun Stampede and Trigun's analysis with Scotty McGeester, aka Eddie. I hope you checked out his channel and I hope you enjoyed those videos. But I'm back with new content today to talk about an anime that has since wrapped 5 seasons as of about a month ago, and that's Aggretsuko. If you haven't heard of Aggretsuko before, it's kind of like an anime staple that lives on Netflix only, so you'll have to check this out on Netflix or get a subscription to Netflix if you want to watch it. And it's essentially about a red panda who is slothing through life, but not really slothing through life, just trying to get through the regular struggle. And I think that anyone who works a 9-to-5 job, trying to figure out their and just, struggling in life in general is not part of the 1%. You will really identify with this show overall. And I'd like to say that Aggretsuko is like the anime anthem for millennials and maybe Gen Z. I don't really know what Gen Z's struggles are. I'm a millennial, but I want to say that Gen Z is probably struggling like we are to some extent, but with different issues. However, I think that we can all come to the consensus and say that work sucks and life lately is just like a little sometimes. Now, before I dive into the video, again, I will go into what Aggretsuko is kind of about, and it's essentially about a red panda. So, newsflash, there's a bunch of animals in the show of Aggretsuko, and this red panda's name is Retsuko, and she kind of, again, like anyone else, struggles in life, has a 9-to-5 job that she hates, is not really happy with life. Her parents are hounding her to get married, and she kind of just needs an escape from all of this. And like anyone else, you look for stress relievers. For some people, that may be the gym, it may be sports, and it may be music. In Aggretsuko's sense, I guess you could say it's kind of music, but it's a lot more intense. So Aggretsuko kind of takes all her frustration and pent-up anger and does like screamo karaoke. I couldn't really understand why people enjoyed the show so much until like 3 episodes in, and then I was like, if I was her, I would probably scream that much too, except I don't want to lose my voice. However, we all have our ways of relieving stress. If that intro of the show wasn't enough to convince you that Aggretsuko is quite possibly the most relatable anime for millennials and Gen Zers of all time, or at least in this current age, then I'll go into the different themes of every season and how each of these seasons kind of touch an aspect that everyone has experienced in life or will probably experience at some point as you get older. So, as the title indicates, Aggretsuko is about Retsuko, name of the red panda, and she kind of gets like aggravated. And with her aggravation, she does like screamo karaoke music. So much so that sometimes she carries around like I don't know if it's a real mic or a faux mic in her purse, and she like screams into the mic sometimes in the bathroom on her breaks or in random places where she can hide herself, especially if she's had too much pent-up anger. Within season 1, most of her anger seems to stem around her boss, director Ton, and he's kind of like a chauvinistic pig. And funny enough, he is an actual pig. So there's kind of like a play on people's characters based on what kind of animals they are. So Aggretsuko is kind of having these issues with her boss because he kind of belittles her. He kind of just like treats her not like a person, or not a person because she's not actually a person, she's a red panda, but someone that's not like a co-worker to some extent. And I think that everyone in some workplace or another has probably had a manager that they don't love. Maybe they're not chauvinists, maybe they are not people who tend to push you around or berate you, and in some cases they may be, but for many people, we don't really love our managers a lot. I don't know a lot of people who love their managers. And honestly, it actually goes to show that most people end up quitting their jobs due to their managers. I'm sure you quit your jobs for other reasons, like everyone does, but most reasons are because your manager sucks. In a means to kind of escape her job, the only way someone could possibly do that is maybe we marry rich. So she starts looking for a husband, and in looking for a husband, she starts dating. But unfortunately, the dating scene is not so great. And I think most people out there can identify. Problem number 2 is that The dating scene is kind of slim pickings now. But for Aggretsuko, getting married is a means of escaping her horrific 9-to-5 accounting job in which she gets berated in every day. While season 1 touches both on the workspace and how people struggle in the workspace and just trying to get through that, as well as dating, season 2 dives into dating even more. So it's basically kind of like a continuation of season 1, except Aggretsuko is now really looking for a suitable partner. There's definitely pressure from her mom and her parents as to when she's going to get married or when she's going to find a partner. So now it's not just a means of her looking for a partner so she can escape her job, but her mom's now setting her up on like blind dates and like matchups in order for her to get married, and she's kind of over that too. In the dating madness with her mom setting her up with partners and her just trying to get through, again, the daily struggle at work, she ends up actually meeting somebody who is essentially perfect for her and perfect in her eyes. He checks all the boxes, and in addition to that, he's rich. What more can you ask for? He's invented this AI or owns this tech company, and he's super well off. Aggretsuko and him have so much fun together. They're so adventurous. It's like the dude of your dreams or the partner of your dreams. But at some point in the show, Aggretsuko and her new partner or her new beau are talking about like their future together. And even though they envision a future together, Aggretsuko envisions a future with him through marriage, and he doesn't. He doesn't believe in the construct of marriage and the idea of marriage, and there are plenty of people out there. But for Aggretsuko, that's like a deal breaker. And this ends up creating a lot of frustration for her. If I haven't mentioned before, Aggretsuko is someone who has a really hard time expressing herself throughout the entire series, and she uses kind of like this aggro, screamo karaoke or screaming like type of music to get her feelings out. And as the show goes on, she kind of pulls people into her private circle so that she may express herself to screamo at them so that she can finally feel capable or able to express her feelings. So she kind of does that with this guy. Brings him into a karaoke booth and just explains to him like, dude, I love you, you're great, but what do you mean you don't want to get married? Like, I can't have that. So that kind of ends season 2 for us, and Aggretsuko is single again, which drives her into a depression in season 3. At this point, if you can't relate with everything that's being said by the show of Aggretsuko and what Aggretsuko is going through, you must have like the most amazing life ever, or your life must be so pristinely perfect that you haven't encountered dating issues or work issues, or the aspect of feeling depressed and wanting to drown your sorrows in video games, which is what Aggretsuko does in season 3. Season 3 starts off with Aggretsuko just drowning all of her sorrows in pay-to-play video games, and it's kind of like sim games of like dating with a VR. It's like crazy, and she basically blows tons of money doing that. And it's just like, whoa, Aggretsuko, let's slow down a little bit. Yes, that dude was perfect. Yes, he was the dude of your dreams, but like, do we need to spend this much money on sim guys out of depression? But again, to each their own, because you know what? I love me a good otome sim dating person video game. However, this whole like wallow your sorrow in video games thing, it ends very quickly because Aggretsuko is so absent-minded and so out of body that while she's trying to park her car or she's in a parking lot, she hits somebody else's car and now she owes them money. She can't really pay them from all the money that she paid while playing video games, and so she ends up working for them. This person is a manager for an underground pop idol group. So season 3 takes like a big turn to some extent because it's not the day-to-day job dating stuff, but it's still relatable to some extent. So Aggretsuko is now helping this pop idol group sell merchandise. And one day the manager kind of like finds her doing like this screamo death metal music in a karaoke booth, and it's just coincidence that they're at the same karaoke place at the same time. He finds this to be probably a niche aspect that he can leverage for his pop idol group, because his pop idol group is not very popular. And again, like I mentioned, they're an underground idol group. Furthermore, he's kind of in debt himself, so he's trying to dig his way out. he sees this as a win-win situation, as Retsuko can figure out a way to pay him back by also elevating the pop idol group status, and in all makes him more money than selling merchandise. Aggretsuko was really reluctant initially to kind of do this because she does her screamo death metal music in her privacy with very limited people knowing this. She kind of finds happiness in this for a short amount of time until she gets stalked, but that's another story. And the whole essence of season 3 is just finding your happiness or finding your space to be yourself but also be happy. Yeah, more or less. So season 3 is more or less the discovery of how to find your own happiness and how to seek out your own dreams to some extent, even though being a pop idol wasn't Retsuko's dream. And Retsuko goes back to her regular life. Oh, if I didn't mention, in season 3, Retsuko also starts her own death metal screamo YouTube channel. But in season 4, it goes back to the work life again, and it focuses more on Retsuko and her director Ton's relationship now. So we're coming a little bit full circle, where season 1 he was a complete, and then in season 4, due to company problems, finances, and like that we all experience, he gets laid off and he starts working in a convenience store. But in him getting laid off, there's a hyena who essentially has had a big crush on Retsuko since season 1. He's very apparent in all of the seasons, but he doesn't really start to have a more prominent role until like maybe the end of season 3, or at some point in season 3 and then season 4 for sure. So within season 4, Haida gets promoted because he also has all these IT skills while working in the accounting department. But what ends up happening is that all of this promotion and praise that Haida is getting inflates his ego a lot, and he starts to play with the accounting number books. He starts to cook the books. That's the terminology I'm looking for. He starts to cook the books. And even though Ton is no longer around and he's working in a grocery store or a convenience store, Retsuko looks for him essentially because at this point Haida and Retsuko are together now, because he finally confesses his feelings to Retsuko at the end of season 3, and now they're dating. Whoop whoop, they're together. She finally has the boyfriend that she's been looking for. But now her boyfriend is cooking the books at their firm, and she's very concerned for him because he's being very secretive, working very long hours, and is not talking to her and essentially lying to her. So Ton and Retsuko essentially form a partnership because Ton, since he's been at the company for so long, despite his lack of IT or technical skills, he knows what the book should look like. He knows when somebody is cooking the books. So he kind of like works with Retsuko to help figure this out. At the end of this series, at the end of this season though, this ends up resulting in Haida getting fired. Season 4 is a real show. One, because Retsuko is not a big focus of the story. She is, but very indirectly. It's more like Haida is the focus of the story, and we're kind of following him around with his insecurities, but then his promotion helps remove some insecurities to some extent. It's like a facade, because Retsuko's ex-boyfriend was so awesome that Haida's constantly comparing himself to this guy. And if I had to say what the theme here is, it's that your work status and what you do to make money in life doesn't make you who you are, and that your security should come from something else. And you shouldn't try to compare yourself to exes of your current partner, because that essentially gets you nowhere. Your partner is with you for a very specific reason, and you're still together for also very specific reasons. And season 5 is the very final season. Even though it kind of ended a little bit more open, where you could kind of feel like, oh, is there going to be a season 6? No, it doesn't seem like it. It seems like the studio and everyone's like, nope, there's absolutely no season 6. If the story feels like that way to you, it's just you who feels that way. So season 5 is where things start to take a really big, like, macro level turn. Whereas in seasons 1 through 4, we've talked about more day-to-day stuff that people kind of struggle with, or stuff that you and I regularly struggle with, or have struggled with at some point in our lives. But season 5, they were just like, we're gonna make this like real meta for y'all. And we're gonna start talking about job loss. And with job loss, you can't find employment. And when you stay too long unemployed, you sometimes end up hopeless, because how are you supposed to fund the lodging or the home in which you're in? And in this case, we're still following Haida around for the most part. I would say for the first half of season 5. And with him kind of quitting his old job due to the fact that he was cooking the books and he was kind of very ashamed and didn't want anybody to find out, he is now playing video games at home like Aggretsuko did in season 3, except he's actually blowing a considerable amount of money. I want to say like in the thousands of dollars. So Haida is quite possibly one of the most unrelatable characters within the show, just because, one, the apartment he lives in is owned by his dad. His dad is a politician, so he's kind of like a trust fund baby to some extent. And yeah, he just has exuberant amount of money at his disposal. But the catch kind of happens when his dad finds out that he's unemployed. He doesn't like that for his son. And there's a new election. There's an election coming up, and even though his dad is not running because he's kind of old, his younger brother is. And they don't want the type of disgrace that his son is, so they kind of like kick him out and tell him like, you gotta be out of sight. And it starts to dive into this whole like how once you lose your job and you can't get a job and you become homeless, the way out is not as easy as people think, where you could just get a job and continue regular life. It's not that easy. So they dive into this whole construct that we live in, which is capitalism, real piece of world we kind of live in sometimes, isn't it? With Haida, he kind of like ends up homeless, doesn't tell Aggretsuko about it, so Aggretsuko thinks he's cheating. And he ends up meeting a bunch of other people who are also homeless. It's not really like directly said, but it's kind of indicated. And one particular person that he meets happened to be someone that he was also gaming with, and finds out that she's kind of just given up on life. You know, some people out in this world, they understand that the struggle of capitalism is just too hard to fight and end up just checking out of the system entirely and just finding their way in different means. So we go through the aspect of freelance work. I'm telling you, it gets really meta. And at first it started going over my head, but then I started appreciating it for what it was. But it started taking a turn at some point, because as we're talking about elections, Aggretsuko, with her YouTube channel and her big following of like death, screamo, metal music, kind of gets pegged for being an elective candidate because of her rage. There's like this whole rage party, a rage party, kind of like we have Democrats and Republicans. There's a rage party and they want her to be like the candidate on the ballot. And so now we've gotten really deep into how politics doesn't fit and how Aggretsuko wants to help change that. But you know, when you watch season 5, this is probably the only thing I won't spoil. You'll see what happens to Aggretsuko and her election results, as well as Haida's brother, who's also running opposing her. So it starts to get into this whole dynamic about how old men run the show. Why do we let older people make the decisions for us and people who are well off? And it's just this constant struggle. But the good news is that at the end of all of Aggretsuko and Haida finally figured their shit out together, and you know, it looks like they're gonna have a happily ever after. I hope. We don't really know what happens after a show ends, right? But all in all, at the end of the series, we could kind of see that Aggretsuko started off as this really shy red panda, has learned to vocalize herself, has learned to express her emotions, not only through screamo death metal music, but also without it. I feel like the screamo death metal music was just a means or a way of her figuring out how to express herself, because the screamo death metal music becomes less and less frequent, which to my initial interest in the show, it was a little bit disappointing. But I guess it just goes to show that with growth, she changed so much that she didn't need to like rage so hard. And I think for anybody, we hope to get to a place where we don't need to rage so hard and we could just be at peace. For those of you who have already watched all 5 seasons of Aggretsuko, please let me know in the comments below if the themes that I covered are themes that you also felt while watching Aggretsuko, or if there were themes that I've missed. If you haven't watched Aggretsuko before, you should, because it's literally one of the most relatable things ever. Even though it starts to become very, not unrelatable, but it starts to become less and less relatable by season 4, I guarantee you that at least the first 3 seasons are like top quality. And then season 4 and 5 are just like, you're just there for Aggretsuko. But that's gonna do it for me today. Thank you so much for tuning in as always. I have always appreciated your continued support and all that you do for me and the channel. But I will catch you next time. I'm Mel, the host of this channel. This channel is Animal, and I'm here to help guide you through the vast universe of anime and manga. Catch you next time. Bye!